So, good morning again to everybody and welcome to the session. I am Ruby Stevens Morgan, the Director of Strategic Planning and Data Analysis with the Coordinating Board. I've been with the Coordinating Board for 8 months and come from Prairie View A&M University as the Director of Institutional Research for about almost 9 years. And I've worked in higher education in the classroom. I've worked in K through 12 classroom and administration. And I've worked with data for a long time. So I understand the challenges that we face with our students, with data, reporting. So a lot of things, but although there are challenges, there are also things that happen that are really when we know we're making a difference for our students. So we want to help you continue to do that. And so that's part of the reason for the session today on equity in education and looking at this from a qualitative perspective. And so we've been doing a little work at the coordinating board as well with equity, with funds that we received from the Lumina grant. And so we just want to take this to the next level and continue to work with you. So with that said, I want to not introduce because you already know her, but Elizabeth from the coordinating board who is your point of contact. So she will just have a few words to say to you and then we will introduce a couple of other people.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see people's faces. A lot of times we're connecting via audio only, so it's nice to see everybody this morning, and I hope you all find the training useful and engaging. Just so you kind of know, our plan for the day is we will start with, we'll spend the first 2 hours of the meeting doing our equity training provided by Rachel, and then we will move into introducing our regional Tableau dashboards and letting you all see those a little bit. And then we have some discussion and Q&A. So hope everyone enjoys the session. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And then we also have Luis on with us, and he will be the one who will introduce the dashboards later, but I will let him say hello to you as we get started.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to share with you the dashboards and hope you find them useful. We'll be doing that around the 11 o'clock hour, and I look forward to that.
Thank you, Luis. And so with that said, we will go ahead and begin our session and training with Rachel. And so I just encourage you all to, I'm sure you will learn some things that you will find interesting during the session. And I will be back to have some kind of closing words at around 11 o'clock. So I look forward to talking to you all then. I will not be fully engaged, but I will be listening to the session while I'm working on some other projects. So look forward to listening in. Rachel.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ruby and the coordinating board. I am so excited to be here and to be presenting to my region, our region, Central Texas. Being born and raised Austinite, it just feels really good to be learning with you all today. With that being said, I want to acknowledge what's happening both inside this session, this learning session, and outside, and that's the continuous murder of Black men and women and children in this country that has been happening for 400 years. So I just want to take a moment to pause and hold space for that for just about 10 seconds. Awesome. And now I want to enter into this session with that intention, with Black Lives Matter being at the top of the conversation for us. So with that being said, let's get started. First things first, names are a big signifier. And I want to see who is in this session because we are going to be using cold call quite a bit. So I need to know who I am cold calling. So let's go ahead and create some name tags. You will see your name either in the participants list, if you click participants at the top or bottom of your screen, or to the right of your screen with gallery view. Click the 3 dots next to your face and click rename. And you can rename yourself either with your first name, last initial, or first and last name. At this time, we're renaming ourselves, and if you need any help at all, please let me know. Carolyn, great. Charlie, great, awesome. I see you all already here. Susan. Awesome. Bev, do you need any help renaming yourself? Okie doke. I think Bev is okay. Good. Okay, let's move right along. Miss Suniga, can you tell me how to pronounce your first name, Mison?
Very close. Can you hear me?
I can hear some sweet birds happening in the background, but I can't quite hear you so well.
It is pronounced Mison, just like Nissan with an M. So
Mison.
you were very close. Yes.
Thank you. Okie doke. So here's today's agenda, and I'm going to cold call Charlie. Charlie, can you unmute yourself and read through today's agenda for us?
Okay. Do you not hear me?
I cannot hear you. Are other people having a hard time? Is it just my internet?
I can hear him.
I can
Someone raise your hand or nod your head if you can hear me. Okay.
But we can hear you, just, I think, reading the agenda, we haven't heard that part.
Exactly. Thank you, Karen. You know what, Elizabeth, if you could chat Charlie, that would be great. And I will have Karen Buck, I'll have you read the agenda for us today.
Sure. First, we're going to do the welcome and acknowledgement, and then we'll follow with community agreements, followed by why did you come today? Why are we here? Today's objectives, our role working towards equity in education, feedback, and finally Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Any questions so far? If you've got a question, just simply unmute yourself. We'll work through it. Otherwise, let's get started. Cool. So these are our Zoom learning agreements. The virtual learning space, as you are well aware, is much different from the in-person learning space. We're not just copying and pasting in-person to virtual. But I will ask that you treat today's session as if you were in person. So to that end, if you need to step out for a moment, attend to a baby or a kiddo, or answer an email, please just go ahead and type in the chat. I'll be back in 5 minutes, or whatever it may be. So please treat this just as if you were in person. I'm also going to ask that we have 100% engagement, that everybody is all in. I know there's a ton of stuff going on outside of this learning session, but please, please, please be engaged, be all in. That only benefits everyone. So I ask for that. I'm also going to ask that we stay muted throughout today's session. That is, of course, unless I ask you to unmute yourself and engage with us in dialogue, but please stay muted. And then these next 3 agreements we're going to practice. So I am asking that everyone have their camera on so that I can read those little facial micro expressions and really see who is in this session. It is a heavily participatory session, so I do ask that cameras be on. So we're going to practice. I'm going to have everybody go up to your dashboard and turn your camera off or stop video. So everyone should stop video. Fabulous work. And now I want us to all 100% come on back to video. Starting video again. Hello. Awesome. Lovely. It's great to see each of your faces. This is great. Okay. So we're going to keep our camera on, participating as if we were in person. We're also going to be using the chat feature only when asked or only when required. So we're going to stay off chat unless it's part of the activity. So for now, I'm going to ask you, describe in one word how you are feeling about today's session. So go ahead and participate in chat, and you can either participate privately or message everyone. Looks like Paul's feeling good. Carolyn feels fine. That's great. Misan is good. Let's see. Elizabeth, interested. Thank you. Fabulous. Great. So these are some great feelings, great vibes rolling on in. I appreciate that. Overwhelmed. 3 calls at once. Oh, Bev, my heart goes out to you. So let's use all of this positive energy in today's session. Susan, interested. Great. I'm now going to go ahead and use cold call. We'll be using cold call a lot today. So can I have Mike unmute yourself and tell us, how are you feeling good? What's behind that? Why are you feeling good about today's session? Mike R, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm just interested in everything that it has to offer. I'm fairly new to this group, so just interested to see where it goes, where the discussion takes us, and learning about all the data that is out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for being an early cold call participant. I appreciate that. We are going to have a lot of new content for those who were joining in the earlier sessions about a month ago or 2 months ago. So you will have some new stuff today and a few takeaways. So I'm excited for that for you all. Here's our learning session agreements, not Zoom related, but learning related. We are going to be really using I statements today, speaking from our own experiences. It's oftentimes in difficult conversations, especially about areas of identity, race, gender, sexuality, we so often want to talk about others, but we really are only going to be focusing on ourselves and using I statements, speaking from our experiences. So I can only talk from my experience of being a Mexican American woman in that arena. I'm not going to speak for every Mexican American woman, right? That would be impossible. So we're going to use I statements. We're also going to focus on owning the impact. This is more timely than ever. Oftentimes, we'll say that in difficult conversations, I didn't mean to offend you, that wasn't my intention. But really, intention is not as important, frankly. It's not as important as the impact of actions and words. So we're really owning our impact. We're also going to be seeking to understand our colleagues as each of us share a ton of personal experiences. And so we're going to be thinking about really trying to understand somebody else's point of view, stepping out of ourselves a bit. I also want to name, while colleagues are sharing today, one of the easiest things to do is while someone else is sharing, thinking about what I'm going to say next. I want us to practice active listening today, really seeking to understand. Finally, we are going to be accepting and expecting non-closure. Simply put, you will not receive all the answers today. If anything, you will leave today with more questions. Accept and expect non-closure. Awesome. Think about those learning agreements. Which one do you want to prioritize today? Either write it down or lock it in your head, but I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. And you will discuss with one other colleague, which learning agreement are you prioritizing today? Okie doke. I'm going to send you to breakout rooms now. You have 2 minutes. Which learning agreement will you prioritize? So right now you should be joining your breakout rooms. If you're having trouble joining, let me know. Misan, are you having trouble joining breakout rooms? Hey, welcome back. We should have a couple more folks floating on in. Bev, there you are. I was wondering who the face behind the name was.
My webcam works when it gets ready.
Awesome. Yep, understood. Okie doke, everyone. So welcome back. I would love to hear from Carolyn. Carolyn, if you could unmute yourself, which learning agreement are you prioritizing?
I statements.
Tell me more, Carolyn. Why are you prioritizing using I statements?
Because number one, I think it's very honest and easy to say I statements. And number two, because we didn't have the slide with us. And so the two of us both said we remember the first thing on it. And so we both chose I statement since there was no way to copy those down since we didn't have slides.
Awesome. I love that. You were, you had a roadblock and you said, you know what? I'm just going to take the first one I remember using I statements. Fabulous. Thank you very much. Okie doke. So we have those learning agreements top of mind for us. And now let's discuss why we're here today. So in chat, I want you to respond to one of these two questions. Why are you here with us today? Or what do you hope to get out of today? This is a great way for me to level set on expectations or kind of see what's coming with you. So why are you here with us today? Or what do you hope to get out of today? You can respond in chat either to everyone or just to me privately. So Paul says an opportunity to move higher education forward in the Central Texas region. Absolutely, Paul. Karen's hoping to receive some understanding from different perspectives or understanding and different perspectives. Bev, anything. I love that. Anything. Nancy, seek a better understanding of higher ed world to translate this information for my district, K-12. Great, Nancy. It sounds like you are coming from a different part of the education sector. Alrighty. So with those in mind, I'm going to share a little bit from my perspective about why we're here today. I believe we're here today for 3 reasons, and that's to start a conversation on applying an equity lens to our leadership already. So I believe we're here to start that conversation. And it's just a start. And with that in mind, I really want us to look at our own experiences as that starting place. So it's my assumption that when we begin to see this full spectrum of our own humanity, then we're able to see it in others. So we're really, really, really focusing on our own experiences, diving deeper into those questions. And finally, acknowledge that this work takes time. It takes time, it takes practice, and it's a process. So a lot of times, practitioners will talk about how this work is really about coming into consciousness or consciousness raising or consciousness building. And anytime you're working in that space, it's going to take continuous time. So a lot of us may have the language of equity and be very comfortable with the language of equity, but we might not yet be doing the labor of equity or live by equity values on a daily basis. So today is really, really, really for some of us about gaining that language as we may be in a language deficit, but also about using that language so that we can advance the conversation and perform that equity labor. So moving from language to labor. That's why we're here today. You may be wondering who I am and who Maya Consulting is. Well, Maya Consulting is a team of educators right here in Austin, Texas. And we're focused on equity in education, of course, naturally, right? And we do this work in 3 work streams: strategic planning, project management, and diversity, equity, inclusion advising. So this is a learning session that we're putting on under that 3rd work stream, but really my bread and butter is working one-on-one with leaders and advising them one-on-one on how to implement diversity, equity, inclusion into an organization. So who am I? I'm Rachel Franco. I'm born and raised Austinite, proud Austinite, as I've said many times. And I grew up in a chronic trauma, chronic stress environment. And that really, really, really rooted me in this understanding of issues of belonging. And that was those experiences, of course, were foundational, but from my hometown of Austin, Texas, I moved to Chicago to attend DePaul University. And from DePaul, became more and more invested in work that is serving historically and systematically marginalized communities. And from DePaul, started teaching, taught for a handful of years, felt like I didn't know enough. So I earned my master's in education at Harvard, really studying the intersection of identity and lifelong learning outcomes. So how does identity impact lifelong learning? So that's a bit about me. I would love for Karen, if you could unmute yourself to read today's objectives.
Sure. Number 1, review equity as it relates to the education system. And number 2, connect our identities to equity-minded leadership.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Karen. Fist of 5. I understand these objectives. 5, I'm good to go. 3, I'm not quite sure what these objectives mean. 0, what's going on here? I have no idea. Go ahead and show me fist of 5. I've got a couple 3s, a 5, lovely. Thank you for participating. So I'm going to give some context. This first objective is really level setting. Thank you, Karen. 5 is really level setting on definitions. I'm going to have you explain to me the difference between equality and equity, as oftentimes we can use those terms synonymously and they don't mean the same. So we'll level set on definitions for equity. And then the bulk of our work today is really going to be about connecting our identities to equity-minded leadership. And that's the work where I'm going to ask you to really practice using those I statements and prioritize seeking to understand others' experiences. That's also, the second objective is where you'll also get a lot of takeaways that you can use on your campus or with your colleagues. Cool. So first objective here, what is equity? I want you to tell me, I'm not going to cold call on anyone. I want you to volunteer, just unmute yourself. Explain the difference to us between equality and equity as you see it in this illustration.
This is Nancy. I'll take a stab at what I see in the picture, that equality is giving everyone the same thing, whether that's what they need to be successful at their task or not. And equity is providing them what they need to successfully meet their objective. So in this picture, our shortest friend here cannot see, even though he was given the same thing everyone else was given. But in the equity picture, he was given exactly what he needed to be able to see the game the way that the others are seeing the game.
Nancy, my internet is cutting in and out, so I'm gonna take myself off video for a moment. But what I really heard you say comes down to an allocation of resources, that it sounds like equality, everyone receives the same thing, but equity, we're really giving people what they need. Is that more or less what you said, Nancy? Awesome, I see your thumbs up. Cool, I'm gonna push you a little bit further. Can you now explain, how do you see equity in your work today? Or how do you see the differences of equality versus equity in your context?
Awesome. So in public education, I think this is a constant topic or area that we're trying to understand and balance. It's one thing to deliver academic instruction and want academic success or achievement from all of our students. It takes much more effort, perspective, and willingness to understand when students need equity to have that same academic opportunity. And so it's part of our job to figure out when what we give everyone isn't working, and then determine how we respond to that so that we're providing equity.
This emphasis on equity is the next step, and it's the harder step, but it's so worth it. Thank you, Nancy. Here's some handy definitions for you between equality and equity if you want to screen grab this or take all of this, but really it's more or less what Nancy said. Equity comes down to creating learning spaces or designing policies, practices, and supporting our leaders in doing work that meets the various needs of all learners or all students. So equity is really giving people what they need individually in order to be successful in learning spaces. Today is really going to focus on our efforts of utilizing qualitative data sets rooted in identity so that we can better understand those individual needs. And then using that and asset-based thinking in order to strengthen our equity work. Okay, I'm back on video here. I think our internet is cooperating now. So I'm curious to hear from you. Why is it so important to keep the definition of equity in the forefront of our mind, both in today's learning, but also every day in our work with students? Go ahead and respond to this question either privately in chat, you can chat me privately, or respond to everyone. Got it, thank you, Carolyn. Paul, we only move forward together. Can you tell me how that connects to the definition of equity here and why it's important to keep equity at the forefront of our minds?
Sure, it's easy to give everyone the same thing. That's the simplest policy possible, just dole it out equally. But if we don't make up for any short gaps, we're all in a classroom and we're all at different levels. And so the teacher in the classroom has to teach to the lowest level and bring everybody forward together. So if we don't do something about that before we all get in the classroom, then we're not gonna move forward as a region. We're always going to be at that lower level. So we have to balance things out.
Awesome, thanks for explaining that, Paul. You made that connection really clear. I think something that you brought out here that I 100% agree with is equity is a starting place, right? It's the starting place. so that we can transform education and create transformational learning experiences for students. So equity is not the end goal for us. Instead, it's where we start. Got some responses rolling in. Nissan says, often equity is equated with equality. Yep, absolutely. So having the definition in the forefront is so important, right? So we can level set and begin the work with that definition in mind. Nancy, I think it's an important reminder that challenges our status quo. We have to accept what we provide to everyone may not translate into success or achievement for everyone. Yep. We are in the everyone succeeds business. We cannot move forward if we are all not moving forward. Exactly, to your colleague Paul's point. So we're moving right along into objective 2, and this is where we're going to spend really the bulk of our time together. It's really, really valuable for us to gather qualitative data on our students so that we can respond to their individual needs. So I want to know from you, how do you gather qualitative data from your students? I've got a poll up for you to respond to. We've got 10 participants here, so I'd love to see 10 of us respond. Ooh, and your responses are rolling right in. Got 3 people who have responded. How do you gain qualitative data from your students? I'll give us about 10 more seconds. Okie doke, I'm going to share the results with you. So it's really interesting that the majority of us are gaining qualitative data from our students through surveys and interviews. I'm assuming through open-ended responses on surveys, but I'd love to hear more about interviews. If you responded interviews, can you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about how you gain qualitative data through interviews, how you make that data actionable? Give us a little bit more color.
Me again? I'll be chatty. So one of the
Great.
best things being in a
Paul,
small
I knew you would be a chatty bird.
right. One of the nice things about being in a small institution, we have a total of 3 buildings, so it's not hard to run into a student and ask a question and have a conversation. These conversations, when documented over time, are pretty powerful. So I'll sometimes just, I have a list of questions that I'm interested in. I'll go and I'll run into a student that's in one of our lounges or walking down the hall and have a conversation with them about that topic and see what they say. And then I'll go back and document that information. After a semester, I'll have enough information to do an analysis to figure out what kind of a survey that we actually need to send out. So instead of sending out a qualitative survey in broad mass, I'll send out a quantitative survey that'll be very actionable at the end of it for a president or a provost or somebody that wants to do something.
Paul, I'm going to go ahead and step back here and let you lead the rest of the session. That was beautiful. Absolutely. I know you couldn't see me, but I was honestly fist pumping while you were talking. I love that what Paul does in terms of gathering qualitative data is he really makes it more relationship based. It's really more rooted in those relational experiences. And yet he is still doing the work of recording those conversations later, gathering themes, gathering, almost in a sense, coding it, and then making it actionable from there. That's great. The exercises we're going to be using today, Paul, you can absolutely embed into the practice that you're already doing. So that's wonderful. Thank you. 3 things. I want you to record the 3 things that you are passionate about, the 3 people that you love, 3 identities that are your most salient, and 3 events in your life that really made you who you are. This is an opportunity to go a little bit under the surface. And my hope is that by going under the surface a bit, we can investigate or think through, self-inspect, reflect, how do these parts of me show up at work? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes with a pen and paper, respond to each of these 3 things, 12 things really. And then I'll send you to breakout rooms for you to discuss. This is one exercise that you can use in gathering qualitative data from students. Okay, timer is on. So you have about 3 minutes left to respond to each of these, and be prepared to share out with a colleague in breakout rooms. If you finish before the 3 minutes is up, just let us know in chat so we know about time. I know Paul is ready to go. I'm taking a clue. I'm taking a clue from a few signals that a couple of you are done. If you can let me know, just give me a thumbs up if you're finished, if you're ready to chat with colleagues in breakout rooms. Awesome, sweet. Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Y'all are giving me little signals. So I'm gonna send you to breakout rooms. I want you to discuss every single thing that you wrote down with a colleague. Just walk through it with them. So you're headed to breakout rooms right now. You should have received a dialog box that said, hey, go to breakout rooms. Let me know if you have any trouble getting there. Misan, do you need any help getting to breakout rooms? Welcome back to the few of you that are back. Lovely. Welcome back, everyone. So I hope you were able to, I hope each of you got an opportunity to share your 3 things, or rather 12 things. I'm wondering, how do those parts of you that you shared, maybe 3 identities that you're most salient or 3 events that shaped you, how do those parts of you show up in your work? I'd like to hear from, let's see, Carolyn, if you could unmute yourself. How did these parts of you show up in your work? Looks like Carolyn isn't on. What about Bev? Bev, if you could unmute yourself.
I wish I could not. But anyway, I think mine shows up in my way in some positive ways, but some negative ways. Positively, I think I can get a lot of things done, and I think that I do them well, maybe not as well as I would if I wasn't doing too many things. But also, I think I don't say no enough.
Absolutely, I can understand that as well. Thank you, Bev. I'm thinking about what happens whenever we're not able to bring our full selves to our organizations, or when our students are unable to bring their full selves, all of these different parts of themselves, to our campuses. It's, I think it's you, Nancy, that's giving me a yes, shaking head yes. I think our students, or I know our students rather, want to be known so deeply by the institutions that they chose to attend. And so my question is like, what does it mean when students aren't known by their institutions, aren't fully known by their institutions? What does it mean when they don't feel safe on our campuses? That is the question that I don't expect an answer to right now, but I expect you to be asking yourself throughout this session. So getting more into this idea of being fully known or experiencing belonging, I'm going to share a little bit about where I'm from. And this is just like we did before in our original session, but you will actually get a lot more time to write your own poem about where you're from. And I want you to be prepared to share that poem with colleagues in breakout rooms. So I'll read my poem and then you'll have an opportunity to write your own. So where I'm from Pots on the Stove, from Bluebell Ice Cream and Quaker Oats. I am from the red brick trailer home, duplex, and the woods behind them. I'm from aloe vera plants growing wild against the broken down red truck. I'm from Great American Cookie Cakes on your birthday and curly brown hair, from Roxanne and Salvador. I'm from talking too loudly and with your mouth full, from get your elbows off the table, and I'm so proud of you. I'm from church on Sundays, fried chicken Sundays, nap all afternoon Sundays. I'm from Austin, Texas, and San Luis Potosí. Barbacoa tacos and barbecue chicken. From Papa Granda running away from the police with his shoe shine kit, the scar on my brother's lip and the other on his eyebrow. The pictures of family members now gone. The yellowed cigar box sitting empty. The UT football cap unmoved from the altar in the front room, sacred elementos, honoring the lives of those that came before. So now it's your turn. I want to know where you're from. I want you to respond to this poetry template and write your own poem. You're going to stop at from the name of family member and another family member. So in my poem, I would stop at, I'm from Roxanne in Salvador. So go ahead and write your poem. And I'll give you 5 minutes to write it, and then I'll send you to breakout rooms again. And you'll be thinking about, how can we use this exercise with students? Sorry, I know I'm really messing you all up. Here you go. I was trying to get the template for you, but it looks like I can't access it right now. 4 minutes left. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds left, and then you'll be sharing your poem in breakout rooms. Okie doke. I'm gonna now send you to breakout rooms. Welcome back, y'all. Is it Janelle? Janelle, am I saying your name right?
Hi, it's Jenny L. Jenny with an L.
Jenny L. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny L. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that exercise for those who were able to participate, to share a little bit more about what's going on deep underneath the surface. I certainly enjoyed listening to Susan and Mike's poems. Mike, I'm wondering, I'm not going to ask you to read your poem, that was private, but I will ask you this. I heard you say you're from All Hands on Deck. Mike, can you tell us more about how that shows up in your work with students? Or how that might show up in your work?
Sure. So, I mean, to give context to that, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and I had two brothers. And so whenever the big season, planting season and harvest season, everybody helped out. Didn't matter what part of school you were on, where you were at. As soon as my mom got home from school, or we got home from school, we hopped in the grain cart in the truck and we were helping Dad harvest. So didn't matter if you had homework, I did my homework in the tractor. And so how that shows up is like, I'm just always ready for work. And it's working until the job gets done, because you do what you have to do. And it's kind of in my work with students, I really don't, I work until the students' jobs are, until I get that job complete for the benefit of the students, whether that's a leadership by example, or because most of the time they would never know the work that I'm doing on behalf of them. But I know that it has an impact. And so I just am working as hard as I can for the betterment of the students.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. It sounds like that value of hard work really shows up in the work that you do on behalf of students. I'm curious as to when, because I'm assuming you already do this, when you connect that value of hard work to that same value that so many of our students share, the value of hard work. How do you bring out those parts of you in your work with students and shine a light on it or amplify it? Because those parts of you are unique and important. And I know that your students have those exact same unique and important characteristics and values. That's what I'm thinking through right now. I want to know from Jenny L, since I'm practicing saying your name, Jenny L, can you tell me, how could you use this exercise with students, or how do you envision using this exercise after today's session?
Yeah, I loved, you know, we shared in our group how wonderful it was to be, one, to have kind of the direction, but also to think about our identities in these kind of one word, you know, descriptors. And so that was really nice, and how all of it kind of just flowed up to the top. I think in our group, we talked about, at least I said this, I would like to do this with my team, to get some practice around it. And then what I'd really like to do is share it with our professor that oversees our Life and Leadership series, which is our, you know, we have 3 distinctive courses that all of our students take. And I think that would be a really great process or activity for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny L. I'm thinking about how these parts of us invariably show up in our work, but so much of us are just moving day to day to day to day, especially with what's going on around us. We're just trying to get through the day and get to the end of the day. But I think what's important, especially in our education sector, is that we humanize ourselves in this work. Bring all of that stuff that's underneath to the surface, and know that those who we are working with also have so much going on beyond the surface. And so humanizing this work, it can only start there. So thank you, Jenny L. I want Susan, if you could unmute yourself. Susan, I want you to read this quote for us. Oh,
Living our living our identities is much like breathing. We don't have to ask ourselves each morning who we are. We simply are. Identity is never fixed. It continually evolves, but something in it stays constant. Even when we change, we are recognizably who we have always been. Identity links the past, the present, and the social world into a narrative that makes sense.
oh, sorry about that. There you go.
That's okay. It embodies both change and continuity.
Lovely. Thank you so much for reading, even with that tech flub. Misan, as you were listening to Susan read, Susan, by the way, you have a beautiful reading voice, super soothing. Misan, as you were listening to Susan read, I'm curious to know how does this quote apply to our students?
You know, I think many students come to us with what they believe is expected from them. So really taking the time to get to know students and to understand the various backgrounds, and to let them know that it's okay. It makes a huge difference in providing supports for students. I think often we have this kind of a shell of what we should do or what we should provide without really digging deep into our backgrounds, our student backgrounds, where they're coming from, and really thinking about how we can make adjustments so that what they bring to us is just as important.
Misan, I hear this emphasis of doing the work, doing the labor of equity on the institution end. And you said something that I want to bring out a little bit more. What do you mean when you say to students, it's okay?
I think, for instance, in my work, I work heavily with high school students. And so we always find that high school students, whether first experienced to college or not, that they have this belief that there is a different expectation. And so regularly we spend time with students to let them know that who you are and your learning style and not knowing, for example, is all okay. So we find that we say that quite often just to break that barrier of we're higher education and maybe their secondary education. So we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that that our space is comfortable for them and that they feel welcomed. And I find myself saying regularly, it's okay, like it's just okay. So I don't know that has any deep meaning, but I know that that's a word that generally makes students and other folks just feel a little bit more comfortable and welcomed. And I think that's important, to have a space where students can really reach out and learn to advocate, which we spend a lot of time on as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it sounds like creating an inclusive space for students is where you are finding success. And I hope that all of us can hear that success and build off of it. I really, really like, it's simple, but it's true. This emphasis on it's okay. It's okay to not know what you don't know. It's okay to bring those different parts of you to this space that maybe were not accepted before the learning space that you're speaking of. With that in mind, we're going to move towards asset-based thinking versus deficit-based thinking. And I was talking to a practitioner the other day, and Z said, like, is this just strengths-based approaches? Yes, more or less. We're going to be moving into a strengths-based approach. So when it comes to equity-minded leadership, asset-based thinking is really a helpful paradigm for embodying the values of equity leadership. So this is when we're really getting into the language of equity. What does it sound like to be an equity leader? So deficit thinking really prioritizes or sees deprivation in students, most often in communities of color. So we're thinking about what are your students, students are coming to our campus and we're thinking, man, our students need so much. There's so much they don't know. We need to teach them X, Y, and Z. And so we're really taking that banking approach of seeing students as empty and us as filling them up. If you want more to that end, Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Press, you may have already read it, but that's a good one to think into. How can I go against this banking system? So deficit thinking sees deprivation in students, and it often overgeneralizes the student experience. And so again, students will come to us, they may mention one or two things about their identity, and then we immediately start forming a story in our minds of who they are. And then what stinks about that, or what's troubling about that, is then students are constantly trying to rewrite the story that we have already written for them. And so deficit thinking really overgeneralizes the student's experience, and by effect erases what they are actually bringing to the table. It erases the strengths and knowledge and skills that students have that we could capitalize on to achieve even more greater student success. Whereas asset-based thinking really prioritizes those strengths. If you are going to have any takeaway today, if I've done anything right, I hope that you take this away. The way we talk about students can have a major impact on the way we think about improving student achievement. The way we talk about students can have a major impact on the way we think about improving student achievement. And this is a big key takeaway, but at the same time, it's not that deep, right? In relationships, if we are constantly talking poorly about our partner, if we're constantly tearing people down in conversation, then we're not going to have the most positive outlook on that relationship or building that relationship. And it goes the same way with students. I think the pitfall here is that when we approach this work through a deficit lens, we may be erasing the parts of our students' experiences. I'm belaboring this point, so I'm going to move on. Asset-based thinking is really strengths-driven and opportunity focused, and it places accountability on the institutions instead of placing accountability or placing blame on students or the communities with whom we partner. So it's really about taking ownership for our actions and in this work. Asset-based thinking asks the question, what is present that we can build on? So it's really looking for what has been successful, how can we replicate that success? What do we know has been successful for our Black and Brown students, and how can we replicate that and build on that? Deficit-based thinking, and let me pause here and say, I think oftentimes folks think asset-based thinking is being positive. Yes, being positive helps, but it's also about being strategic and looking for opportunities, really investigating opportunities. Deficit-based thinking, on the other end, is really needs-driven, right? We're seeing what our students are lacking and how we are going to be meeting those needs. But there's a pitfall here where we're constantly looking at students, especially students of color, through a needy lens, and then that places us in that white savior complex or white savior space, right? Where we think like it is our role to take on saving students. So deficit-based thinking, it's needs-driven, it's problem-focused, it's externally focused. So it looks outside of our offices at solutions instead of looking at what's already present, what's already successful within our offices. And it also places the blame, again, on the students. Well, our students just don't come from communities that value education. That's deficit thinking. Or unfortunately, our students have too much on their plates. They have too many priorities. That's, again, blaming the students for how they're needing to survive. So that gets into some other topics, but deficit-based thinking really asks the question, What additional knowledge, skills, or resources will we need to find to tackle these pressing problems? And I think that's an okay question to ask. But again, this type of question goes outside of what we already have successful inside of us. So I'm going to speak on a couple of more points, and then I'm going to give you some Central Texas data for you to think through an asset-based lens. And it's a lot harder than we give ourselves credit for, but you are going to be really using an asset-based lens in talking about your Central Texas data. First, I'm going to speak a moment on this. Oftentimes when we're talking about student data, we're using the word achievement gap. The reason why we're no longer using the word achievement gap, or I recommend no longer using the word achievement gap, is it compares two different groups, right? And so we're really comparing low income communities of color to upper income white peers. And so we're saying that the low income students of color need to be meeting the upper income white peers. So we're comparing these two groups. Instead, we should be acknowledging that for our Black and Brown students, there has been centuries of educational oppression that has occurred to where we are today. And so we don't want to be erasing what has already been going on. That's why we say education debt, because our Black and Brown students are really, really holding an education debt that our upper income white students do not have. So here's some data from the Northwest region. And this gets into the work that you're going to be doing in breakout rooms. I've got this data point. You'll hear how I will use an asset-based lens on this data point. So the data point is 60% of Hispanic female first-time undergraduates graduate from Northwest Texas public universities in 6 years. That's the data point. How I'm going to be using an asset-based approach is I'm going to be opportunity focused, and I'm going to place accountability on our institutions. So I'll say our region has successfully served 60% of Hispanic female students. I might also ask what has been successful for this 60% of Hispanic female students, and how can we replicate that success to meet the needs of 40% of our students? What has been successful? How can we build off of that success? So now it's your turn. You're not going to be placing blame on students or on the other institutions that these students have gone through before they came to you. You've got data in front of you. I want you to capture it, either by writing it down or taking a picture, taking a screenshot. Capture it, and I'm going to send you to breakout rooms. So how would you apply an asset-based lens to this data? And I see a couple of us just writing down data points. That's great. And by now you should have gotten an opportunity to capture the data. I'm going to go ahead and send you to breakout rooms so you can apply an asset-based lens to this data. So right now you should be headed to breakout rooms.
Hello?
Hi, Bev.
Okay, I didn't see anybody in my room.
Dang it. I was looking out for that.
Okay,
And I was to another room, but
okay,
I
that's all right.
so back here, but that's okay. Folks should be coming back any minute now. Awesome. Welcome back, y'all. Great. Welcome, everyone. I would like to hear out from Paul. I was in your little breakout room and I heard you talking more about student experiences. Stepping back from that, how would you apply an asset-based lens in talking about data?
Okay, so you missed the part where Robin was countering my point on how to do that. And I know, it was actually really good. She was about like 88% through her point when we had to come back to the breakout to the main room. But, you know, this is so hard for me because none of the categories on the screen are reasons that people don't complete. And so this data doesn't help me. I know from my professional experience that being in one of these categories does not change your odds of success. There are other factors that are underlying here. Robin points out that some of the students in the success range, they had those factors too, and they succeeded. And really, we need to identify people in those categories where maybe they had life events that were tripping them up and they made it past that. We need to find why that worked out and replicate it, like you were saying.
And I would add, I didn't get data in our breakout group, is for me, the issue is that it's amazing to look at how great these female students did when we look at those numbers. And what are the factors of our female students that was different than our male students that we should be looking at to say, were they in different support programs? Did they have different things that we can help that we can then replicate for our male students to make sure that they get the same support that our female students got so that they will be able to have the same rates and figure out what the differences are?
Absolutely, Carolyn. I love that both you and Paul are really getting behind the numbers and trying to find the parts of the stories behind these numbers. That's absolutely asset-based thinking. And I want to know, as a fear of over-intellectualizing the conversation, which can be a way to get away from uncomfortable feelings, how would you literally talk about this data through an asset-based lens? So Robin, it sounds like you had some good ideas. If you could unmute yourself, how would you apply an asset-based lens to this data?
Well, kind of like what Paul had said, and he said it a lot better than I did. But you know, look at what made the 60% of African American males successful. Look at those things so that we can determine. And as Carolyn mentioned, what made those females so successful? That to me, again, looking behind the generalized data here to delve in and determine how we can help the other populations better and the ones that weren't successful. I think that's the purpose of looking at the data and diving in deep so that we can get that information.
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you for your contribution and really advancing the conversation. I absolutely agree. I love how naturally the Central Texas region just gets behind this asset-based thinking. And I think that you see the success of that within this region. I also want to continue to build off of asset-based thinking. So now in chat, new set of data, show off for me. How would you utilize asset-based thinking and talking about this data set? So now we're on CTCs. So tell me in chat, either to everyone or to me privately, how would you utilize asset-based thinking here? Elizabeth says we have the opportunity to better serve 84% of African-American male students at our CTCs. Elizabeth brings the conversation right to the front. So we know that we are not successfully serving our African-American male students. We have an opportunity to better serve 84%. And I know I said that with such emotion and such emphasis, and that's purposeful, right? We have not yet been successful here. We're not ignoring it. We're not blaming students. We're instead taking accountability. I'd like to hear from more of us, maybe from Mike or Charlie or Carolyn. In the chat, how would you talk about this data? I can see us really thinking through it. If there's frustrations here, share them too. How would you talk about this data? Paul says, my assessment brain struggles with this. I'm anticipating, Paul, but I want to know more. I'm anticipating your brain is going into another part of the conversation that's present here. What are you thinking through?
So I look back at Elizabeth's statement, which is pretty powerful. You know, we can serve 84%. If somebody walked up to my desk and said that, I immediately say, great, how? Like, we want to do something. We have resources and we want to do something. And for all of these students, the clock is ticking. They have a limited window of availability for higher education. And we can't wait. We need to do something. And so with that statement comes, how do we do that? And I know that's not thinking.
Yeah, no, I was flagging a couple of things that you said, but I think what is the start? And I'm not expecting you to answer this right now, but what would the start to that answer be? What would be the start of that how? Because what I really want to know is, are we placing the emphasis on us and our institutions, or instead, are we gathering information from the individual student experiences to respond to that how? Both and. I know I'm going off a little bit of the deep end here. Misan has a response to me privately that I think gets at the start of that how. Thanks, Misan, for your response. Other questions, other wonderings? What are we thinking through here? I'm going to take our pause I'm taking our pause as we're still grappling with this of how to apply asset-based thinking. Or maybe we are, as a group, going to that next step that Paul is thinking us through of how do we better successfully serve our students. So to that end, to this more processy place, which it seems like we're in right now, I want us to respond to each of these 4 questions. Respond to each of these 4 questions. Where are you right now? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to respond, and then every single one of us will actually share out one of our responses. So each of us will have an opportunity to talk here. Where are you right now? So we were just in this brain place. I now want us to go a little bit more into this heart place, thinking through each of these questions. I'm going to respond to each of them, and then you'll share out one of them in just 4 minutes. You have 2 minutes left. If you have any questions about maybe what I mean by identity areas or anything like that, just chat me privately and I'll answer your question. Just 2 minutes left. Okie doke. My timer has gone off, but I know I've been answering a few questions. Bev, I know you told me where you're at. Where are folks at? Do they need more time? If you need more time, just tell me how much time you need in the chat. If you don't need more time and you're good, just give me a thumbs up.
Can you explain what you meant by identity areas?
Yes, absolutely. Carolyn, there you are. So for identity areas, I think for me, the identity areas that keep coming up are trauma experiences. So trauma experiences are an identity area. But other experiences that people are, I think, stuck on or wondering about are transgender issues, cisgender, non-binary, so issues around gender, veterans experiences, students with disabilities, of course, race, ethnicity. So how do we respond to those identity areas now? Does that help? Sweet, okay, good. Jenny L, we're gonna be sharing out in just a moment. I'm just kind of checking on how much more time do people need. All right, is everyone good? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to share. Paul's good. Jenny L's good, okay. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna share out in this order that I have put in our chat. So we'll start with Karen and move on to Misan and then Susan. And then you have the rest of the list there, but I only want us to bring out one area. So maybe bring out success or bring out stuck. Just bring out one area. So Karen, where are you right now?
So I think I'm looking at the support area. What resources support do you utilize or do you need to progress in your work? So I think we've made some strides in that. And one of the examples I'll give is we haven't said the C word today, the COVID-19 word. So I'll go ahead and introduce it into the conversation. But one of the support services that we decided to implement towards the end of March is we called every one of our spring students. So some students had been reached out to by their divisions, their coaches, their dorm directors, but that left us with about 9,000 students that had not been called. So we reached out to those students and we called them and we asked them, what resources or support do you need in this stressful time? It was a large project. We were able to contact about 80% of those students. And so we collected information, but we didn't collect it by categories like economic disadvantage, Hispanic, African American. But we did take a step further than what we normally take. Normally we would have said, oh, that's wonderful, we've collected that information. So we went ahead and for students, you know, that had issues or things that they needed help with, we directed of those comments to appropriate sources that could reach back out to them and try to get them the technology they needed, the Wi-Fi, the high-speed internet. And so I think knowing that we have resources and support and doing an outreach, collecting that data, but then acting on that data. And so I need to convince the people at my college that we need to act on the data. We're doing outreach, we're collecting data, but I think those statistics that you saw on that chart could be better for us if we react and respond to the data that we're seeing in front of us. Rachel, you might be muted.
Ah, you're the best, Karen. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What I was saying while I was muted was, first, I really appreciate you starting us off in this conversation. And it sounds like that you have had some successes that I hope your colleagues can hear and echo those successes or build off of them. But then this emphasis again of we've got the information, now let's act on it, cannot be missed. So we know what's right, we know what's wrong, Now let's move forward in action. That's great. Misan, where are you right now?
I also focused on the support. And so I think one of the things that have worked for us is just our connection with our secondary partners. So we do quite a bit of work with our high school partners on just things that have worked in that environment, and also the things that have not worked. I think often we all want to do things now, and you jump into something, and really connecting with your partners to really find out what's worked is a huge benefit. Some of the things that need to progress, institutional priorities and equity, more action, less words. I think we can all agree on that. We just need actionable things. We regularly get the words, more so recently, and I think we just need to prioritize equity as an institution and really put things to action.
Awesome, great reminder, Misan. I love this super infinite emphasis on actions, not words. You're right. Equity is the starting place. Let's get started. Let's stop saying this is what we intend to do. These are our next steps. Actually do it. And I think especially for white folks, as I am a white Mexican American, or for non-Black folks, the emphasis or the labor has to be on us to speak up and do some more uncomfortable conversations with our institutions. Great, thank you. Susan, what about you? Where are you right now?
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue into stuck on some things. I guess trying to figure out how to address the things that I'm stuck on. Like, I'll give you an example. We recently, in the last year or two, have become more focused on helping students with, non-academic barriers to their success, food, clothing. We've developed a circle of support where we provide a social worker, a counseling, and that sort of thing. But, the things that I hear from some folks on our campus is that, well, we never got those things. We made it just fine without having those kinds of resources. And then even with what's going on today, with everything you started off the conference with, the meeting with, as far as, all the African Americans, who are dying at the hands of police, and, Hispanics that's happening to them too. I mean, I have my own experiences with that, but, again, I see, based on social media and some of the comments from people I work with, they think it's gone too far. They're totally against all of the things that have been said recently in the news about the changes that are needed. And I guess, I'm focusing on the negative or the deficit here, but how can a person engage others in conversations about equity when those feelings and those kind of ideas and opinions are so strongly communicated also?
Absolutely, Susan. I think, to be honest, while I was listening to you, my heart just came out, and I don't have the answers, right? And I don't think any of us really have the answers. But I do know one thing, and that's collectively, we need to speak from our own experiences. And we need to share how I think our institutions have successfully served us, but also have failed to serve us, our communities, and folks that look like us. And I think from sharing those personal anecdotes, folks who are not yet into consciousness, that is one way of entering consciousness. I feel inadequate right now because I so relate to what you're saying. Mike, what's coming up for you? Where are you?
So I'm feeling a little successful in a sense, because I've been at CTX since September, so I'm fairly new to the institution, but I had worked there before previously for almost 5 years. And the change that has taken place from the time that I was there in the 6 years that I was gone and now I'm back, has really been eye-opening for me. And as a small faith-based private institution, we have, there's stereotypes that are out there, and the fact that we are an HSI school, and the work that I have done and helped to do, we are able to be nimble and maneuver and support all of our students. And one of the initiatives that has come forward in the last few months is our ability to start a summer bridge program for students who, we found that students who, based on the English and math placements that they come in with, are more likely to graduate from school if they have certain, if their first year English and math are college level. And so coming in and offering students a program that gets them college ready, and having to get that credit helps them to be able to be more successful for them and graduate and hopefully change their outcome in their life based on that. And so being able to do that, in a 3 to 4 month window, I think speaks volumes to the university that we're able to be nimble and flexible, whereas probably at some other schools it would take, a lot of planning and maneuvering and funding and all that. But with our leadership there said, yes, we want to do that. We want to provide that service. We want to help those students. Let's get it done. And just to be part of that institution is very prideful for me.
I'm so glad to hear that you are experiencing success right now, Mike. And I think within the spirit of the conversation, would you briefly share what are some personal identity areas in your success maybe that keep coming up for you? And I know I'm offering you a challenge right now, so I know that I'm asking you to go into a space that is a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yes. I guess what I would say is the identity areas that keep coming, the one big one is just this just getting it done at all costs, whatever hard work, like I don't know. I'm
That's great. I hear I'm going into more of your growing edges, and that's great. I'll take you off the hot seat for now. You're right, there is this sense of urgency right now. And there's two things. One, we know that within white supremacy culture, and I know I'm going into that space, but in white supremacy culture, one of the tenets is sense of urgency. It keeps us moving, and it keeps us from doing the work that is slowing down and reflecting. So I hear that. At the same time, this moment does require a sense of urgency, knowing that we cannot wait for our Black and Brown students. We cannot wait. And so I totally hear that there is a bit of, not a bit of, there is a movement that's within all of us to respond to this moment. I hear that. I told you I was going to take you off the hot seat, Mike. I am. Jenielle, where are you right now?
I am in the support quadrant there. It's an institution. We are in this, Mike and I are at the same institution, Concordia University, and we are in the same sense of urgency. We have partnered with E3 Alliance and and we're using the ITA assessment tool that has been used by Gates Foundation. And the tool, we've just completed our assessment. Over 100 of our faculty and staff have taken the survey, and we're a tiny institution, and to know that over 100 would complete this is saying a lot to me, because the entire survey and assessment takes every single pocket of the institution and puts an equity lens on it, and it has us provide our feedback on where we feel like we are in each of those sections. And so one, I keep hearing over and over through conversations on my campus, we want more resources and support. And I think that the same, in the same sense of this sense of urgency, but also a sense of vulnerability that folks are having on campus, that are, you know, surrounded by language, surrounded by identity, surrounded by the gravity of everything that's happening, I think is something that I keep hearing over and over on my campus, and I want to help, also recognizing that I need help too. So, and for that, I'm grateful for this group today.
Great, thank you, Jennielle. I think this point around so many folks truly scrambling, but so many folks at your institution and other institutions are saying, we want more resources, we want more resources. Yes, that is right on, and you're right that asking for support is vulnerability, and I think that can't be missed. And at the same time, it's important to note, who are we asking for resources from, and how our identity plays into that asking for resources. And so I think for non-Black folks, or for white folks especially, we have been in this tradition of placing labor on people of color, especially Black folks, Black women especially. And so we are placing the labor of, I want to think through this, I want to advance a conversation, I want to grapple with these topics. But really, we need to be sitting with our uncomfortable feelings, sitting with that level of uncomfortability, investigating it, wondering where it's coming from, and then doing that work on our own and with other white folks especially. So I'm going to plug that for a bit. Let's see, who, I got away from our chat. Jennielle, after Jennielle is Bev. Bev, where are you right now?
I'm in support, and I told you that. The way I see this whole picture, and you have to excuse my down-to-earthness, I'm not really a professorial person.
I love it.
But the way I see this entire situation, and I've been in environments just like this one all my life, where I've always been, you know, virtually the only person of color in the room. But you know, it doesn't bother me at all. But what I'm saying is, there's no one silver magic bullet that we can use to cure all the ills. Just as everything else in our whole world is diverse and the approaches are diverse, there are multiple approaches. There are the issues that we try to address are multiplicity. I don't see there being a one silver bullet. Sometimes we can figure out with a little research, you know, what the problems are, what the trends are that focus, that point toward a problem. Sometimes that's not enough. There's a saying that most of you probably heard is, and that saying is that reprimand without relationship equals rebellion. And that simply means, it sounds a little harsh, but it means that unless you have some relationship, and you have to understand the dynamics of different cultures and different types of people and the cultures within those cultures. People of color tend to be more affective in the channels that it takes them to their learning. You know, some people are more cognitive, some are more psychomotors, then some are more effective. But the affective domain is very significant in the learning of a lot of people of color. Because if they don't trust, if they don't believe that you have their genuine interest at heart, I don't care what strategy you use, you're not going to get through. You know, basically, that's the bottom line that nobody knows about. But, and then there's some, you know, within other cultures, Latino countries, I've done some research with, in healthcare, with Latino populations, different types of, you know, Mexican, and then the Latino population. I've done with indigenous people and so forth. But unless the first thing we have to do before we can get any kind of, address any kind of issues is to get to know who they are. Now that may be a lot to some people. Some people it's not a lot. There's some people you're never going to make the change in their thinking, never. Don't waste your time on those people. Give them what you got and move on. Don't get upset about it. Don't get mad about it. You know, I don't care how many tweets or Facebook or whatever, or Instagram you write, you're not going to change their opinion. But we need to change what we can change. And a lot of times, just like, as you saw my comment, I said that a lot of what we need is professional development. Some people, they may not change their thinking, but because they have learned the practices, they will still be beneficial. Okay? Some people will change their mind. I know sometimes this stuff gets to our hearts and it makes us feel, you know, so, and nobody's trying to make anybody embarrassed or feel sorrowful. We are all where we are because of what happened in the past. And as we teach in our families and our kids and so forth, we grow, it just perpetuates itself and it continues. So, you know, I think that I had very early in my career, some of you may know I do a lot of grant writing. I wrote a grant, and I don't want to take up all the time, but this grant was to support what I call, it was back, I'm sorry to use this word, but back when we had the achievement gap. And I had a lot of programs. I had about 6,000 kids and families at a little HBCU in North Carolina that I had a community health and wellness program with. But I invited different groups and I trained faculty to do Socratic inquiry. And we had this huge room, round tables. We had a table of kindergartens, a table of principals, a table of superintendents, a table of middle schoolers. We had different types. We had 3 basic questions we asked each one of them. And I unfortunately, I can't remember one of them, but one was, what did they think that the gap meant? How do we get there? Yeah, that's what, how do we get there? And how can we get out of this situation? Overwhelmingly, in different levels of communication, the statement was from the kids groups, we don't feel that the teachers in the school system have an expectation of us. So that says to me, kids want to be challenged. They want to be engaged. But if you're in an environment where there's no expectation of you, regardless of what you may feel that whatever you do is not going to be enough. It might not be accepted. It might not be, you know, be welcomed. So that says to me that relationship is very important. Although, you know, we always say the affective domain is the last one. Yeah. But essentially, all of us have knowledge in all of those domains, and it dominates in different people in different areas. So we have to respect that. Everybody's not going to be cephalic, but you can get to that if you get through to, if you have a relationship with them. I'm not saying be buddy and all that, but let them know that you understand, you know, you're there to help, you're there to support their needs and help them get to where they need to go. I'm sorry, I might have been off task, but that's just how I feel.
Your thoughts, reflections, everything that you brought to this conversation, I can't echo it, I can't repeat it. Thank you for bringing those challenges to the group. I agree, this work is rooted in relationships, and there is no one right answer. It's rooted in relationships, and there's many, many ways that we can be successful in this work. It's not an either or. And Bev, I feel like some of what you were saying was speaking to Susan's questions or to Susan's thoughts. And, you know, even hearing Susan, I had this moment of paralysis, but I think it can't be missed that like the folks who are not with us are not going to be with us. We can't waste our breath or waste our energy in trying to get them to come along. And instead, we have to focus on doing what is right and continuing the conversation. For those of us who are going to get it, they're going to get it, and they're going to hop on into the work with us. So I want to finish out here. We've got Robin, Carolyn, and Paul. Robin, what's coming up for you? Where are you right now?
Well, it's interesting that when I started answering this question, I went straight to support, because that's, you know, supporting students and helping them achieve their goals is the goal of my work and the work of all the people that I work with. But as I was thinking that through, it really brought me more to the stuck, because when I think about the data and the fact that our graduation rates for Central Texas College, because that's the college I'm at, are so low, I'm stuck because of the excuses and the reasons I get from the people based on experiences that they've had over the years. And some people, we're talking 40 years of employment at Central Texas College, and the location of us being right across from Fort Hood. The excuses and the reasons that I get for our low graduation rates are they're military. They don't have any desire to graduate. They're veterans. All they want to do is keep taking classes so that they can get their monthly allotment of funds to live on. I mean, all of these excuses, and there's nothing that comes forward that helps us overcome those issues. Yes, the majority of our population is military, and maybe that is the situation, but there's got to be something else that we can do. So it's the support and the stuck to me are tied together, because while we're giving the support and we're trying all these new things, the excuses of why we can't get better keep looming.
Thank you for that reflection. I think that, like, to be quite frank, when it comes to deficit-based thinking, because folks who place blame on students or place blame on communities, that's 100% deficit-based thinking, and let's get that out of here. We cannot have that kind of approach with students, especially with students of color from low-income communities. We can't have it. It doesn't advance equity work, just plain and simple. And so I think there's this idea of like, well, how can we get folks to unpack it? And I know I'm putting myself in a little bit of hot water here as a practitioner. But frankly, what's difficult about getting folks on board is that they have to decolonize thinking or decolonize your mind into seeing other folks as human. And that in and of itself is hard to handle. But that is the system that we have grown up in and we accept as the norm. And so I hear your frustrations. Everyone shares those frustrations with you. Okie doke, I think it was Paul that was next. Paul, where are you right now?
Wow, it's almost
Or
hard.
Karen, is it Carolyn, I think, is next?
Carolyn had to leave.
So it is Paul, thank you.
You're welcome. It's really hard to follow everyone. You know, when I look at these 4 categories, I've got something places me in each one of them, but I have to agree with Mike the most. I'm feeling the success. We've had some hard times in the United States in the last 3 months, and the death of that one gentleman, it speaks volumes about our society. But I think what it speaks most about is the response that it got, both positive and negative. And I agree with you, we are leaving people behind, but not the people we have historically left behind. I think that kind of behavior is not something that is tolerated as in many groups in the United States as it used to be. And so I'm feeling a magnet of belonging that's stronger than a magnet of diversity. We're talking more about what makes us belong as a community on a campus and less about our differences, even though we're still acknowledging that we all have differences. And I think we're starting to realize the power of those differences. If we're all the same, we will not survive. We have to have people who have different skill sets, people who have different beliefs, people who have different positions and different backgrounds in order to be as successful as we can. But that belongingness is what we're starting to value. And when people come on our campus, they're often very afraid. They've spent 2 years at a different institution and they've been successful, and now they're going to an upper level campus, and you see that in freshmen, but it's odd how it's maybe even more dramatic for a junior who's coming onto our campus, or somebody who's been out of school for a while and been in the military and coming back to grad school. They're not sure that they're going to fit in. And the thing is at A&M Central Texas, we're all a bunch of misfit toys. Nobody is the same age. Nobody is the same background. Nobody has the same economic status. We all have different educational backgrounds for our students because of the lengths of time it's been between their last educational experience. And when you see them come on campus, and really we're a commuter campus, there's no reason to be on campus. There's no reason to be there other than to go to class and leave, and yet see people hang around. And you're like, why are you here in the library versus being anywhere else in town? And it's because they feel like they belong on campus. And we send out a graduation survey and we get that information back from them semester after semester after semester. And our students, they say we have the most diverse campus or public university. I don't know if that's true or not, but we do have a very wide spectrum. We are not predominantly white. We are not predominantly African-American or Hispanic, or do folks fall in the other category. And so it's a fun campus to be on, but it definitely makes you feel the success that this problem of equity, it's starting to be addressed. And I don't think our campus is unique. I think you find these successes across the state, but unfortunately you cannot deny that you find the failures too. And those are the things that we have to keep working on. But I think by having more of these successes. God, I hope I wasn't on mute the whole time.
No, you weren't at all, Paul. I appreciate both Paul and Mike for really focusing on success here. And I think that there's an opportunity to realize that for what may be success or what may be feelings of success for others is an opportunity for so much more work. And I'm not saying that you're not saying that, Paul, but I think that there's absolutely an opportunity for us to do better by our students. And I know you know that. We are moving into the end of our session here. We're over time. Coordinating board folks know that and are well aware of it. I'm gonna go ahead and give you an exit ticket, and that's a way for me to really figure out, did they get it? Did y'all get it? So please fill out that exit ticket. I'll drop it into our chat. And I wanna thank you for your engagement, for your, truly just thank you for your engagement and for bringing your full selves to this work. I really appreciate it. And I feel really privileged in this moment to be working with y'all and learning with y'all. I am not an expert by any means. I don't like that word as it categorizes hierarchy. I'm learning right with you. So appreciate the opportunity to learn with you today. I'll drop the exit ticket in and I'll pass it over to my friends at the coordinating board.
Wow, thank you, Rachel. This was such an engaging conversation. So we really do appreciate you all being so involved and kind of doing some of the hard work in having these discussions. And we really encourage you to continue having these discussions, to move on and make sure you're doing the work. And if there's anything we can do to support you all in your equity work, as in other cases, in your data and other things that we do to support you at the coordinating board, please reach out and let us know. We will do what we can. I am hopeful that we will be able to take the equity work to another level and work with the institutions. So we'll keep working on that. Just know that we're working on that at the coordinating board. So with that said, I don't want to delay the time. We're behind, but we did want to give everyone a chance to give their feedback and have the input at the end of the training with Rachel. So we will now move forward and have them introduce the dashboard. So I will turn you over to Elizabeth and Luis. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, yeah, I want to just reiterate that I think we had really great conversation, and I think that the different perspectives that we heard from everyone sort of really points back to one of Rachel's main points in the training, which is that we have to understand our individual student experiences, right, to be able to address those. And I think that sort of is seen throughout what everyone said. So now we're going to move on and introduce you to our regional dashboards, and Luis is going to take us through a demo where he's going to highlight some key tips related to the dashboards. A couple of things I wanted to cover. First is we will be sharing a link with you and giving you a little bit of time to play with the dashboards on your own. Please note that's not going to be a big part of this. However, that link will be available after the meeting. How long it'll be available is still to be determined. This may or may not be the final place where the dashboards live. What we're looking at today is, think of it as dashboard version 1.0, right? Where we're trying to get some feedback and some thoughts before we go fully live. And when we're ready to share them out with all the institutions, we will of course send out an announcement and let everyone know what the official link is. So as Luis is going through, if you see something that you really like, give us a 5 in the chat. If you see something that you're not so sure about, give us a 1, or provide feedback, comments in the chat about it. If you have any questions as he's going, please feel free to put those in the chat as well, and we'll make sure they get addressed. And with that, I'll hand it off to Luis.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you to this group. I'm excited to share with you the dashboard and show you a couple of things that we've baked into the design, plus some other things that you can do with it. So what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to show you 5 features that we've baked into the dashboard, and then 3 manual things you can use for self-discovery analysis. Okay, so I'm in the super secret URL, which you will get in a few moments. And I'm going to start off by showing us some of the baked design features by going into 60x30 regional targets. So I'm going to bring this up to full screen so we can all see pretty well. And before I change any of the data here, you see that it's for Upper East. Let me give you a lay of the land. So up here, where I'm pointing with my arrow, you see that I'm pointing right now at Regional Targets Overview, and there are some other tabs to the right of that. The tabs to the right of that are in a gray background, and that lets you know that they're pushed aside for right now. So think of it like a file folder. You're seeing Regional Targets Overview first because that's the first thing that we bring up, and you'll notice that it has a white background. So once I activate the other views, you'll see a white background, and it'll let you know what data set you're looking at. The other thing that we try to bring everyone on the same page as quickly as possible, whether you've been doing some of this regional target work since the beginning or you're new into it, is we want to have you on the same page in terms of how to use the data, how we compile the data, and how to get started with this dashboard. So with that being said, one of the first features that we baked into this dashboard is the select a region. So with this upside down triangle, it becomes a drop down list, and you have all 10 regions, all 10 higher ed regions in this list. And so let's change it to Central Texas. So take a couple of seconds to load, and there it is. So now we're looking at just data for Central Texas. And what we did here is we wanted to be able to call out some important numbers to get your attention as quickly as possible. So these attention getters are what we call bands, or other people call them KPIs, key performance indicators. For us, it's the 3 target areas. So it's the educated population, completion, and direct enrollment. Those are the bands we're looking for. And what we're looking to get you focused on is the 2018 current data and the 2030 target data. So the target is what are the state established targets for 2030 for the respective areas. And down below, we wanted to make these graphics also pop out at you. So we have a progress bar chart, 3 of them, and they're all horizontal. So you're looking at 60 by 30 educated population progress. You're also looking at completion progress and direct enrollment rate progress. So you're looking from the light black line, that's 2015 data. The end of the bar chart, that's 2018 data. And the green dotted line, that is the 2030 state established target. So you can look at that. And we try to make the graphics, as I mentioned, as easy to read and as engaging as we thought that they could be. So the second feature that we baked in to help out with this is people might have questions, well, what does this data mean? How did you get it? What do you mean by educated population? The second feature we put in, the third feature we put in was a tooltip. So by putting your mouse over any aspect of the dashboard, you'll see a bunch of these different boxes pop out, and it'll give you a better understanding of what that data means. And we did that because we wanted a clean look. We didn't want it cluttered. And by using a tooltip, I think we accomplished both, okay? Another way that you could use the tooltip is that if you just want to see some data all at a glance, it gives you that information there. Let me show you another example of it, where it gives you even more information than just the numbers you can see immediately on your screen. It'll help you with some analysis to, for example, understand, well, what percentage of students fall into this category? Just 1 second, sorry about that. Let's go to this one. Oh, and I forgot to mention that once you select a region, the dashboard is designed to memorize it throughout the different views. So you don't have to go through the drop-down list every time, okay? So another way that we use this tooltip is if we look at the completions by credentials stacked bar chart, we see that a lot of the data is already on screen, so some of it is just replicated on there, but something that's not there is the percent. So this data shows what percent of bachelor's degrees in 2014 were, what percent of degrees were bachelor's awarded in 2014 for the Central Texas. So you can see some of that data presented on there to, again, leave the clean look, but at the same time, give you deeper meaning behind the data. Okay? So the fourth feature that we baked into the design of this dashboard has to do a little bit with self-discovery analysis. But before I get to that, I just wanted to point out one thing here. This 50.1%, that is your 2018 direct enrollment rate from high school to higher education. And you'll see that 50.1% in a couple of other different places here in this view. You'll see it first in the lower left-hand line graph, where you see 50.1%. Again, it'll show you the total number of students that that represents, gives you a definition of what we mean by that. So that's one place. The second place is that if you look at this band, you see it broken down by sectors. So this 4.8, 22.3, and 23, that all adds up to 50.1. So it gives you the hard count and also gives you the percent, so you can have an understanding of where we get that data, okay, or how you can use that data. Okay. Well, for self-discovery analysis, we thought that it would be interesting to look at direct enrollment rate by ISD. So a couple of things that we did is we put in a highlighter, and it's here where it says select the school district, and in light gray it says highlight school district. What this is the drop-down menu. Once you put your mouse on it, it shows a list of ISDs that are only tied to Central Texas. So we wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible, and you can go ahead and then be able to just pick out one school at a time if you really wanted to focus on one ISD, okay? And that highlighter is tied to this box and whiskers plot. So this is direct enrollment by ISD, and we're looking at 5 years worth of data from 2014 to 2018. And then on the x-axis, we're looking at the percent of students who enrolled directly from high school to higher ed by ISD. So all those yellow dots are ISDs in the Central Texas region. The caveat is that the only ISDs that you will not see in there are the ones that were not FERPA compliant, so we couldn't protect the students' identities, so they're just hidden out from the data, okay? So let me show you how to use this in 2 quick ways. So one is we go to the drop-down list, and let's just pick Axtell ISD. And so you see a bunch of the yellow dots are grayed out. It's very hard to see them, but you see, like, for example, 3 dots here, and those have to do for Axtell. And so if you put your mouse on the dots, it'll give you more data. It will not only give you the year, the status, the percent, but it'll give you the total number of students that represents. And by doing that, you can get an idea of how Axtell performs against other ISDs in the Central Texas region for that 5-year time period, okay? So that's one way that you could do it. And you can still use your mouse to look at the other ISDs, even though Axtell ISD is the only one that is highlighted right now, okay? All right, so the other tool that we used for a self-discovery analysis was to improve the data tables that are ubiquitous just about every report. And so an example of that, or 2 examples, one is a 60 by 30 educated population by credential. In the middle there, you see that table that has the different degrees awarded from 2014 to 2018. And whether you're a data person and you spend your day looking at this, or you're someone more like, let's say, the arts field and you read scripts or whatever, when you come in to look at a data table, by human training, we come to see, like, well, what does this mean? How can I use this? And you're always looking for what's the lowest and what's the highest. So we make it quicker for people to do that. And one of the things that we do to make that quicker is we use color. So the gradient there, the darker the blue, the higher the color. So as you can see, baccalaureate degrees in 2014 through 2018 were the highest percentage of degrees awarded by Central Texas. So it makes it easier to read and have a conversation, whether you come from data or whether you come from the arts or you come somewhere in the middle, okay? Probably a little bit better example is just the highlight table right below, and that's for population 2018 and 2020 projections, because not only does it have the gradients, but it also has a different font color. So as you can see, your eye will probably just be drawn to that white font color, and you'll see, okay, what is this 346,911,000 in 2018 for white mean? Okay, it's for ages 0 to 17. Okay, those are some of the highest. And so you can get a good comparison of understanding, well, what's the second highest? What's the third highest? What's the lowest? And your brain doesn't have to do as much math on demand. We help you out with some of that, okay? So those are some of the things that we baked into the dashboard. At this point, we're going to share the URL so you can have some time to point and click and hover and discover and use some of the tips that I shared with you. Or you can go off-roading. You can try some other stuff and you'll find out that there's so much more that I haven't been able to cover yet, but because of time, I just want to get you started.
Okay, so I just popped the link into the chat. We're going to let you play with it for a couple minutes, and then we're going to launch a poll just to get some initial, or we're going to launch the poll right now to get some initial thoughts on what you think in terms of, do you find it easy to understand, easy to navigate? Is it answering questions that you've had? So the reason we decided to start with the regional dashboards is we've had a lot of questions about different ways to look at the data outside of, you know, what we post on 60 by 30 and what we do for the regional toolkits. So we're hoping that we have started to address those. And then also some thoughts on how you might use the dashboard. So as I said, this is going to be a quick introduction, so we'll give you a few minutes to look at it. And then Luis is going to take us through some additional tips, really focusing on, I'm sure you all noticed there's two dashboards there. One is the regional target dashboard. The next part, we're really going to focus on those institutional completions dashboard.
Yep. Okay. It could be an use for intervention, Elizabeth, if you see some data
I'm sorry?
the dashboard could be used for an intervention if some of the data doesn't jive with you.
Okay. So, and I checked, we haven't had any questions so far. If you all have questions, please feel free to either pop those in the chat or unmute yourself as you're exploring.
Do we have any planted questions?
No, so far you've already addressed those.
Oh, all right.
Yes, so I was going to ask about whether it included all ISDs, and you made clear it doesn't, that the ones with small numbers we aren't able to put in the dashboard.
Yep. Well, if there are no questions, I can be like Bueller.
Really? I don't think that's necessary.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to give you about 30 more seconds or so, and then Luis will take us through some more tips, which you can follow through as you choose. As you're looking through, if you see anything you really like, please feel free to pop it in the chat and let us know what that is.
Should we tell them that if there's something they don't like, they say, Elizabeth, you should have done this?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
Luis always likes to blame me. In fact, he usually introduced himself as me so that you all could just put your complaints under my name.
I know, Zoom makes it hard though, because it has your name.
So, okay, I'm gonna give you guys like 20 more seconds. Could you please do the poll for us if you haven't already? I've only got one person so far that's given us feedback.
Would that be Paul? Is that you, Paul?
I'm not quite finished my poll yet. I feel like I'm being rushed and I'm starting to feel intimidated.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. It's gonna be like my kid screaming at me then. Why are you rushing me?
Yeah, no yelling.
So I like the dashboards. Would this replace the Excel spreadsheets that we had on the webpage?
Would you like it to?
Did you hear my question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, would you like it to replace the Excel spreadsheet?
So Tableau is a wonderful thing if you have Tableau, but good luck printing this out. And so while these are great. It's kind of like with the new reporting system where you can't get the edit report out. Sometimes we have to archive this stuff. Just like in your role, 5 years from now, somebody's going to ask you a question about this, and you need a place to put it where you can get to it even if it's gone away. And so one of the things that I really like about Tableau is it's so easy to navigate through it. One of the things I don't like is I can't grab it and store it for later reference. Whereas with the Excel spreadsheet, I can do that. So the answer to your question is yes. I would love this to replace the Excel spreadsheets. They're a little clunky, and this is very maneuverable, but I need a way to be able to capture it.
So I think in follow-up to that, Luis, maybe we should show how you can capture what's there and then see if that's adequate to address Paul's need or not. Because I'm sure others are thinking the same thing, right? That you need a way to have a copy of this data.
Yep. Only if they can answer a pop quiz question. All right, so I can show that in the next demonstration that's coming up. Do you want me to go ahead and close the poll at this time, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I went ahead and closed the poll.
Okay. All right. So to answer your question, Paul, because others may have it as well, I'm going to go back and we're going to look at that at institutional completion, because you can do it the same in both. Okay. So before I go ahead and put it in full screen mode, which would be here in the bottom right hand, to the left of that, immediate left, there is a download button. So with the download button, the way we have it set up right now is you can in formats. One as an image, so that'd be like a JPEG, a PNG, one of those things, right? Then you can also download it as a PDF. So you can just pop it into one of your PDF reports. You can put it in there for archiving, or you can put it into a PowerPoint. I've used the PowerPoint most often when people don't have Tableau. Someone says, hey, can you build me this database? And so I put the PowerPoint in there, and they're happy with it. In all three instances, the only thing that you lose is the interactivity. So you don't get the tooltips, you don't get, some of the other things that you could do that I'm going to show you in a minute. But for those purposes, they seem to work. Is that something that would address your question?
That would be great. And I could do that for how many different institutions, for how many different regions?
Oh, you can do that for all the regions. So when you go, you have this drop-down menu for the different regions. Just by switching region, you can go ahead and get their data. Okay, so we'll go ahead and switch it to Central Texas for right now. And I want to show you, oh, actually, no, I won't. I'm going to save that for a little bit later. That'll be right after the fifth feature we baked into this design.
So before you switch, so did we cover whether you can they download the actual data itself?
The actual data itself, so like the raw data, at this point you won't be able to download it because we set it up that way intentionally, because we have public institutional data, but we also have independent college and universities or ICUTs data in there. And with our agreement, we can't show the gender, or we can't show race, ethnicity, or economic disadvantage for ICUTs. So in our version of Tableau, you either get it all or you don't get it. So in our version, we're not going to give it at this point. It'll be maybe in the future that we can do that. Okay. So, but you'll get the graphs, and people won't have to rebuild them. The raw data, if you want to do some other analysis on it, is just not available at this point. Okay, so what I wanted to show you, we are in Central Texas, okay. It's a highlight table, but I want to show you some other filter that we built up. So we can select a region, an institution, or a year. Oftentimes people want to know the hard counts, and there's another camp that wants to know the percentage. And then there's a third camp that wants to have access to both. So we built this last filter for people who want to have access to both, because there might be different circumstances. Right now for value, you're looking at the hard counts. If you want to look at percentage, this drop-down feature will then change it into a percentage. And we did it across the road. So for example, for the Texas A&M Health Science Center in the Central Texas region, you see the breakdown of ethnicity and race for the year 2018. And across the row, it adds up to 100%. And it does that for each institution, okay? You'll also find that same feature available in the race, ethnicity, and gender for the independent institutions. And we have two value of percent filters. So you can have it either for ethnicity or for gender. You can play around with it, use it how you feel it best works for you. We wanted to give you that flexibility for you to be able to do that, okay? One of the other nice things that this dashboard has is because it has more views than the regional targets. At the left hand, it has an upside down triangle. So you can certainly navigate by clicking any of these tabs. But if you just wanted maybe a faster way, click on it and then it'll give you all the views at once. So we'll go to the beginning and there it takes us there. Okay? So let's switch this. So those were the 5 features that we baked into it. Now I'm going to show you 3 manual features that you can use for self-discovery analysis. One of them has to do with some of the setup here. So I'm going to change this to Central Texas. Under institution, though, it still remembers Alvin Community College, so it doesn't show any data. Well, one of the things that we did to make it more user-friendly was, hey, let's make sure that this filter can then just be tied to the Central Texas region to make it easier for people to use. And let's say someone didn't know any of the institutions in Central Texas, this would be a quick way for them to be able to pick one. So let's, for example, pick Austin Community College. Now we see the data here for Austin Community College. And these targets are the targets that Austin Community College sent in last year. So it's for each institution, the targets that they sent in respectively last year. And below that, you see the line graph that shows the actual data of completions from 2014 to 2018. So that's manual tip number 1. Tip number 2 is, well, this still remembers Central Texas, but it didn't remember the college. That's because of a Tableau design that we're still working on. But by picking Austin Community College, we get that data again. The one thing that I will say about this is that from now on, when you go into the completion by credentials by institution, once you select a region or institution there, all the views underneath that will remember it. Will remember that you want to see data for Central Texas and Austin Community College where applicable, and it'll just show for Central Texas where it's applicable. Okay? So there's data there that helps you see for this particular institution. One of the things that you may want to know about is because you get an ad hoc request like, hey, I want to know the number of associate degrees or a particular degree ranked by year. And in this, ranked by total, not by year. And in this, we're seeing by ascending order by year. So the way that you can do that is just go into the hard count area, and sometimes it would be on the y-axis like it is here, on the x-axis in other cases. And you have this mini bar chart pop up, and it has an arrow pointing to the right. If you click on it, it'll start sorting by overall completions. And there it is. It shows you that in 2018 had the most overall completions, and 2014 was actually not the most overall completions. Okay. So then to answer the question, well, I want to see it just by associates. Well, you can use the legend down here. As you can see, that certificates is for the baby blue and the darker blue is for associates. By clicking on associates, we get this pop out and it says keep only or exclude. We can keep only. And now we have data just for associates because now it shows us what year was the highest number of associate degrees awarded, and it gives it in descending order. Okay, so that's something that you can use to your advantage. Now, let's say someone is playing around with this and they're like, well, I want those certificates back. How do I get that back? Well, they can either be like Homer Simpson and say, "Dope, it was like that when I got here," and just run away. Or you can just show them two trusty keystrokes. If you're in a Windows environment, it's Control-Z, and see it brings it back. If you're in an Apple environment or a Mac environment, it's Command-Z, okay? If that still doesn't work, you have two more options. You can do Control-R to refresh the screen or Command-R to refresh it, or you can go ahead and just click out of the window as a last resort, and then come back into the link, and it'll go back to the default setting. Okay, so that is the dashboard, and I know that this is really not enough time for you to get as acquainted with it as you might like to. So to that end, we are planning a longer training sometime in the summer. That's going to be full of like data activities and things like that, similar to those of you who did the Data Fellows a few years ago. It would be something like that, maybe not as long, but something that would help you get to know the system better and also share it with your colleagues or your stakeholders off campus. So let's see if there are any questions I can answer.
I didn't see any come up on my side, so unless you got private chat with them, I don't think we have any questions. Just reminding you all, as I mentioned, the link will continue to be good, at least for a while. So please feel free to play around more on your own with both sets of dashboards. And just let Luis or I know if you have any thoughts or any feedback on them. We would particularly be interested in knowing, like, you know, in terms of like, what kind of answers does this address for you? If there's something you really like about it, please let us know. If there were things you were hoping were going to be included, but they weren't, like, we would want to know that as well. So because we realize it's a short time and you don't have time to think through all of those, I'm just going to pop a few questions in the chat that are just things that you could think about and let us know later should you be moved to do so. So again, just sort of those things about, like, is it answering those questions you had? Was there something you really liked? Was there something you hope to see that isn't here? Because as we mentioned, this is version 1.0, and we will be thinking about how to strategically continue to expand, you know, our use of more interactive dashboards, and any initial thoughts you have on either the institutional completions dashboard or the regional one. All right, so did anybody have any other questions about the dashboards? Nope. Okay.
Okay. Well,
so then for the sake of time, we're going to sort of transition away from the dashboards, but as I said, please know you can contact us with other thoughts or questions. Luis or I should be able to help you with whatever those may be. So basically then we wanted to take the rest of the time as an opportunity for, if there are other questions that you all have as a group, which I'm sure you probably would have brought to me, but if there's any questions about the regional work, so that we can address those. So if you have questions, if you want to pop them in the chat, that would be great, and we'll answer them. And as you all are trying to think through whether there's anything we need to address, I have a few things that I just kind of wanted to highlight that I thought may be on people's minds related to both COVID-19 and our regional work. So first, I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that the coordinating board has created our own resource page on COVID-19. So if you're not familiar with that, you should take some time to familiarize yourself with it. I'm going to pop the hyperlink in our chat for us. But basically, this is sort of our central location of all things related to COVID. We have a series of facts and questions that I think are particularly relevant to the institutions. So we have career and technical education FAQs, courses, calendars, and reporting FAQs, general FAQs, and Perkins Grant FAQs, as well as others. Basically, the way these FAQs are being created is as institutions contact us with questions, We then have a committee that talks about those, and if the question seems like something that's probably relevant to most of you, then we go ahead and post it. Otherwise, we respond directly to the requester. So if you have questions related to reporting, related to scheduling, any of these things, please feel free to contact us so that we can make sure that we address them. The committee is meeting regularly to assess guidance on COVID-19. And I believe right now our guidance is through spring and summer, but we are looking at providing some guidance concerning fall in the near future. As we all know, nobody has that magic ball, right? That's going to tell us what's going to happen with COVID-19. So we're trying to make sure that we're responsive. And if there are things that need to be addressed, you know, as you all are planning for your fall semester, please make sure you let us know that so that we are providing that guidance in a timely manner to actually assist you with that planning. And with, I know reporting has been another big question, and we definitely have already done some extensions concerning reporting for spring and summer. So just want to make sure you all are aware of that resource if you were not already. In terms of the regional work, I think in the end, we didn't quite spend all of our grant funds that were expiring August 31st of this year. Remember, we were given 2 dissemination grants. One expires August 31st of 2019 and one expires August 31st of 2020 or 2021. I'm not sure which. Anyways, we do have the ability to have an extension. They've decided that for everything that was expiring as of August 31st this year, it's being extended out to August 31st of next year. However, we just need to make sure that we make that request. And I'm not sure if Luis knows if we're outstanding for Central Texas or not, or if that's already been handled. So don't have to worry about that piece. Did you have something to add, Luis?
Yeah, you guys are good. We have a signed agreement.
Okay, I figured we were on top of that, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
So then we can, I know we spent a big chunk of that $5,000 that had to be spent, but I know we still had a little bit remaining that we needed to spend because we weren't able to get as far due to COVID-19 and the processes we planned for our initiative. Also, as you all may recall, we typically do 2 surveys that are due August 31st. One is the regional action plan and one is the institutional supplement survey that every institution does. And as you all recall, the regional action plan is basically an assessment of here's kind of what we've done, here's our plan moving forward. One of the things that we kind of wanted to ask is everyone still comfortable with an August 31 deadline? Now, we understand that none of us know what's going to happen or what the ultimate impact of COVID-19 is going to be. So obviously plans may continue to evolve, but does August 31st make sense as a deadline for the regional action plan and the institutional supplement survey? We will add additional questions that sort of take into account the impact of COVID-19 this year.
Elizabeth, hi. This can you remind me when you say surveys, is it who is typically filling these out? I cannot recall. I'm sorry. I should probably know this.
No, that's totally fine. So we have the regional action plan. We do one as a region that's submitted. In the past, typically, Paul has spearheaded the efforts to get us together and actually submit that. And then the institutional supplements, I'd have to look. We have a contact at each institution that fills that out for us. And the institutional one is basically a, excuse me, is sort of, we ask you to respond to why you think your institution has seen a change in completion related targets, and then just ask about general stakeholder awareness of 60 by 30 efforts.
Yep. Okay. I recall. Sorry. I felt like you were just talking to a screen, and no, I recall now.
No, that's fine.
So I'm okay, but I don't want to speak to the entire regional board. That I think we can do the 31st, but I'll leave that up to Paul.
I think we typically sent those to the liaisons. So whoever identified as the liaison of the university or community college received the survey and distributed it for completion. I'd actually like to hear from other members on whether we think as a region or each institution would be prepared to respond to a survey in August. I think Elizabeth's trying to suggest that maybe we make it later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. We just want to make sure that, you know, while we understand none of us can predict what's going to happen in the future, with everything that's going on, we just want to make sure that timing isn't going to be a particular burden for institutions, or do we need to push it out from the typical timeline?
And I'd like to interject for a quick second. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm feeling surveyed to death. And we're getting survey after survey from TAC and from you know, coordinating board, from everywhere. And we're all going to be kicking off and trying to do the best we can for our fall semester. And the preparation for this survey will be at the same time that we're trying to do the best we can for our students in the fall. If at all possible, if we could delay it a little bit to get us at least kicked off for the fall, I would really, really appreciate it. I see Karen is saying September, October would be better. I feel the same way. I mean, if we have to do it for August, you know, we'll make it work, but I would prefer a later date if possible.
Elizabeth,
Others?
I think,
yeah.
I think that the data that you get in September and probably October will be more valuable than what we can tell you in August. I think most institutions plan on opening up some form of business as usual, but there's a high risk that we'll all be running back to our homes to work and sending our students off if the curve doesn't flatten or remain flat. So I kind of agree with what Karen and Robin are saying. Your data is going to be better in October.
Susan, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, kind of like Robin, we seem like we're surveyed out, and we've got a SACS visit coming up at the end of September. So maybe October is sounding really good right now.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, I heard you did really well on your offsite report.
You did?
I heard that, yeah.
You heard that? Well, good. I don't know if I agree, but thank you.
Well, good luck on your onsite.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like if you have to do it at the end of August, you will, but the preference would be more for sometime in October, maybe, with that. So, and again, that's just, we're trying to make sure that we're responsive so you guys can do what you need to do. Understanding that things have to be much more flexible right now, right, than they have been for the typical busy fall start.
I have a question though. It seemed like on the regional data, survey, when we met in person as a region, we were able to sort of break up in groups and then come up with our regional goal. So do you envision then some type of virtual meeting or for the regional part of it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So since with everything that's going on, since we can't meet in person, it probably will likely be where, you know, the POC for each area, we have them make sure that their region is having a meeting and getting communication going to make sure they're on the same page for those goals for the year. So, okay, so if there are any other questions or comments on that, the only other thing I wanted to address was, as you all know, we sort of have been talking about since the creation of the 60 by 30 plan that 2020 would sort of be a key time to take stock of where we are and decide whether there need to be modifications made to the plan and, you know, potentially maybe some target modifications or measurement modifications. Obviously, with everything that's happening with COVID-19, not sure this is the best time to do that. The leadership is taking stock of the plan overall and looking at that. And obviously, if they decide to make any changes, that will impact our regional work. But for now, we really are just taking the approach of, we want you all focused at what you do best, which is making sure students have what they need. So we don't think this is the right time to really think about, do we need to adjust the targets? And rather than being focused on, is this the right target? without knowing, right, what the impact of COVID-19 will be on our institutional enrollments and completions, that we just want you to make sure that you continue to focus, as you always do, on what's in the best interest of your students. And then know that that's still in our mind. It just seems likely that probably that's going to shift with everything else that's happening. So, I didn't see any questions pop up. Does anyone have anything else that they're burning to know about, or any comments they wanted to make before we close out for the day?
I want to express my gratitude for the training. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Rachel did an awesome job. Thank you again, Rachel, for helping facilitate that equity training. And I think it's really clear with our group, this is very much on our mind, and it's about thinking about, y'all are already thinking from an equity perspective, and it's about thinking about how do we get to really identifying what those successes are and how we can build on them, right? At a more institutional and regional level. So thank you to Rachel for that. I think she did an excellent job with the training. I have popped a link into our chat, as well as sent an email with the link. Rachel asked you to do an exit ticket, which is really focused on the training portion of the meeting, and will give her feedback that helps Maya Consulting, and will also give us feedback in terms of thinking about how to move forward with additional equity trainings. I'm also asking you, I know everyone just said they were surveyed to death, but to complete a very short survey for us that has two parts. One is just sort of how do you feel about the meeting today, but the second part is really focused on regional efforts at large, and like how you feel about how we're doing with our regional work. And by that, I mean regional work as a whole versus what our specific strategies in Central Texas are. So we would really appreciate your feedback on that. And it should only take you a couple minutes to do, hopefully, because most of it's, options, but you have the opportunity to add in additional comments. So thank you again to all of you for joining us today and taking time out of your day and your great participation. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or any thoughts. And with that, I'm going to wrap us up for the day. And I hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.